Thursday night football already in the books. Week 4 is off and running. So, as we get ready to set your lineups here, I'm going to give you my quarterback rankings for week 4. Let's get into it right now. What's going on, everybody? My name is Michael Hoff. This is the FF Faceoff Sports Network. Feel free to follow me at the FF Realist on X. Of course, most importantly, follow the show on X at FF Faceoff. Actually, really most importantly, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. This way you can be notified every single time we go live with that little bell icon. Of course, if you have any questions at all, hit them in the comments. If you guys watch my kicker video, you guys know I get back to everybody. Fire the questions in. I will answer any and all of them. But yeah, we're going to give you the quarterback rankings. We're going to run into some tiers here. This will be an evolving thing over the next couple of weeks. I'll start giving you some streamers. If you guys have any questions about any quarterback 2 questions, because we're going to cover top 12 right here, top 12 rankings, fire them into the comments. I will get back to you. But let's get into this. We'll start here, tier 1. And tier 1, I feel like it's the Captain Obvious section here. We're going to go ahead. We're going to go tier 1. We're going to rank Josh Allen first. We're going to rank Lamar Jackson second. I feel like every single time this is an absolute coin flip. Listen, Josh Allen, what could we say? One of 3 quarterbacks so far with a 30-point game in the first 3 weeks. He's almost always, the weird thing about Josh Allen is if he's not giving you 20 points or more, he's giving you like 11 or 12. Either way, I think this is one of the weeks going up against the New Orleans Saints. I think he's going to give you more than 11 or 12. I think he's going to give you around 25 or so fantasy points, which is what you'd kind of expect here in this outing. If I'm pulling this up here, the New Orleans Saints in terms of points allowed to the position, I mean, they're not as terrible as one might think, but still they can be had, and I think they will be had by Josh Allen. So feel free to fire up Josh Allen. Again, this doesn't need an incredible amount of explanation. You're starting Josh Allen, you're doing it with confidence. The second quarterback here is obviously Lamar Jackson. Listen, Lamar Jackson, when we go through this, I mean, he's the only quarterback so far to have 20 points or more in all 3 of his games played this week, going up against Kansas City Chiefs. So that's why I put him down to 2. I think he won't be able to completely have his way. Sure, 20 points is still in the realm of possibility, obviously, for Lamar Jackson. It always is every single time he hits the field. But so that's the tier 1. The tier 1 is the obvious tier. It's the Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson show. Let's get into tier 2 here. And tier 2 is only going to consist of 2 quarterbacks. So tier 3, tier 4 will consist of 4 quarterbacks each as we run through this top 12. And my tier 2, I'm going Jalen Hurts 3. I'm going Jordan Love 4. Now, if I can be completely honest with you, when I ranked Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, I like Josh Allen confidently over Lamar Jackson this week. When I go to tier 2, I'm telling you, it's a literal coin flip. So if you come to me in the comments and if you say, hey, do I start Jalen Hurts or Jordan Love? It's honest to God, it's a literal coin flip. I'll get into some of it right now, obviously. But these guys, again, this is why they're in a tier all by themselves, because I feel like, again, for the umpteenth time, it's a coin flip. Going with Jalen Hurts, listen, for the first time since December of 2023, he threw for 3 touchdowns. Despite that, though, he's still, since that time, he's had 9 games of 20 or more points. Listen, again, he's QB3, QB4, but this is why he's in a tier with Jordan Love this week. I still think there's a 20-point game. He's going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They'll be in Tampa Bay. And the good thing about Jalen Hurts is, listen, I know a lot of people were worried about the passing after the first 2 weeks. Week 3, he showed you if he has to throw the ball in a comeback effort against the Rams, he can do so. So just makes him that much more of a violent fantasy asset to have. So Jalen Hurts, I think whether it's through the air or on the ground, Jalen Hurts will find the points. He will find a way to continue to be one of the best quarterbacks in fantasy football. If I'm going to my 4th ranked quarterback, this is where we break away from the the Captain Obvious choices. This is where we get into some stuff here. Jordan Love. I'm going with Jordan Love this week. Listen, this shouldn't be a complete surprise. Jordan Love going up against the Dallas Cowboys. This is a Sunday night game. Simply put, the Dallas Cowboys are an absolute cesspool against quarterbacks. It's almost like they need a pass rusher, but I'll leave that there. That being said, the Cowboys are one of two teams to allow quarterbacks to score more than 20 points in all three games so far this season. Along with that, they're allowing a league high 29.1 points on a per game basis. Now, who is the pass catcher that's going to get all the points here with Green Bay, courtesy of Jordan Love? I don't know. It's turning out again. We all hoped Matthew Golden would be the guy to take the reins and run with it. And maybe he still can. We're only 3 weeks in. We're headed into week 4 now. But to me, starting Packers wide receivers will continue to be for now until somebody grabs that brass ring, so to speak. It's going to be fantasy football rush roulette. You're playing one of them. You're hoping he hits. That's it. So if I have to pick one, it's another opportunity for a Matthew Golden week. I know I said that on our Start Sit show, which, by the way, you can tune in on Sunday mornings. We're going to be going live a little bit earlier before the Ireland game, so stay tuned for that. That's why, again, hit the bell icon so you'll be notified when we go live. But if I'm trying to pull up Matthew Golden here, yeah, I did think that this would be a week for him. It was not a week for him. It was an okay week, but I mean, against the Dallas Cowboys, this has to be a proper week for him to really go off. So either way, regardless if it's Matthew Golden, regardless of if it's Tucker Kraft, regardless if it's the man on the moon, we're going to get a top 5 fantasy performance from Jordan Love this week. He's my 4th ranked quarterback. And again, like I said, absolute coin flip between him and Jalen Hurts within that tier 2. But those are our top 4 quarterbacks. Let's get into tier 3. By the way, actually, if I can close this out, I'm expecting in terms of Jordan Love, if you want to know my expectations, why I don't know who the pass catcher is, I'm looking at that wild card game back in 2023, 272 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. That's honestly what I think will be a real similar stat line to what we're going to see from Jordan Love here in week 4 of this season. Dallas Cowboys suck defensively. So it's like when a dealer keeps busting in blackjack, keep betting on it, keep riding the hot hand. The Cowboys are that hot hand. Keep betting on them because they stink right now. Let's get into tier 3. Let's get into our 5th ranked quarterback. It's going to be Justin Herbert of the Los Angeles Chargers. Listen, all the hype, understandably so, especially if you're living in the New York area, is centered around Jackson Dart. And, you know, that whole bit, what's he going to do there? Flying the planes over MetLife. While all that's going on, Justin Herbert is the only quarterback in the NFL right now to have multiple games for 300 passing yards. Looks like he's solidifying the idea that he's getting more and more comfortable within this Greg Roman offense. Along with the passing yards, Herbert has had 6 touchdown passes, 5 of which have come in the last 2 weeks. And he has just 1 interception on top of that. So, listen, I know the Giants defense. I know that's one thing we said while we said the schedule's tough, so on and so forth. We did say the front 7 will be good. I mean, first few weeks, week 1, they gave up 20.1 points. Week 2, they gave up 26.1. Week 3, they gave up 13.2 against Pat Mahomes. But Pat Mahomes, we'll get to him in a little bit. Pat Mahomes is a little Jekyll and Hyde in terms of fantasy football as far as I'm concerned. But I'm going to go ahead here. I'm going to say Justin Herbert is going to be your 5th ranked quarterback. I think he gets a 20-point game here. I think we'll probably see 6 quarterbacks this week, 6-7 quarterbacks hit that 20-point mark, which is not out of the realm of possibility. It's not something that is unheard of. So if we get into the next quarterback on the rankings, it's going to be Mr. Caleb Williams of the Chicago Bears. Quietly, Caleb Williams enters week 4, 3rd in points on a per game basis at the position. This is due in large part, of course, obviously, I referenced the Cowboys earlier, the dismantling of the Cowboys defense to the tune of 298 passing yards and 4 touchdowns. That performance resulted in about 29.1 points per in fantasy points, depending on what kind of league format you're playing in. So then we've got Caleb Williams at the Raiders. And listen, the Raiders are 10th in points allowed to quarterbacks. Most notably, just last week, they allowed 21.3 points to Marcus Mariota. So it's looking like I mentioned Justin Herbert getting more comfortable within the Greg Roman offense. It looks like Caleb Williams, and yes, I know the Dallas Cowboys might not be the best barometer because of how bad they are against quarterbacks so far, but all indications are, I mean, Caleb Williams looks like he's getting a little more comfortable with being a quarterback in a Ben Johnson offense. 24.2 points in week 1, 17 in week 2, and then last week, again, I mentioned 29.1. So I love the opportunity here for Caleb Williams. I think Caleb Williams continues to do well. It won't be 29 points. It'll be closer to, the 24.2, probably a little bit less than that, but still good enough for me for my quarterback 6 on the week. If we're going into my quarterback 7 is going to be Drake May. And I'll say this on paper, it doesn't look amazing for Drake May. The Carolina Panthers are interesting. In 2023, they allowed the fewest points to quarterbacks. In 2024, they allowed the most points to quarterbacks. A little bit of a seesaw. Now we get into this year. It appears in the early part of this season, they are taking on the role of the 2023 Panthers. And why do I say this? Because they're allowing, after 3 weeks, a league low 11.1 points per game to the quarterback position. But to me, when you look into it then, because here's the deal. You can look at the numbers, but you want to look at the opponents too. Like, who have the Panthers been going up against? So when I really pull that up, the opponents really don't jump off the page to me. So I like Drake May to be able to put up around that 15 to 20 point mark. Again, I mentioned to you 6 quarterbacks here in my top 12. I expect or anticipate at least 20 points for the game. So Drake May is kind of where we start to separate ourselves from that 20 point mark. So he's ranked 7th. It doesn't mean he's going to go bananas. But I do think, entering week 4 here, May is one of 10 quarterbacks to be averaging 20 points or more on a per game basis. So I do think something's got to give here between the opponent playing well. Is it the opponents, though, that they played against, and then also Drake May averaging 20 points on a per game basis? I think we find a middle ground here. I think he finishes just shy of 20 points. So that's why I'm going to put him as my quarterback 7 on the week. Let's get into number 8. Number 8, this is rounding out our tier 3, and it's Baker Mayfield. And listen, in any other circumstance, Baker Mayfield would be ahead of Drake May, but he is going up against the Philadelphia Eagles. There are some rumors about some issues in terms of health with the arm, so on and so forth. We'll see how that develops. But, I mean, I'm not panicking about it. I'm not playing him. I'm just saying it might change in the stat column in terms of where he finishes as opposed to where he would usually finish. We go into the week 1, 22.6 points, week 2, 19.9, last week, 17.7. So I think we're looking at, somewhere in that 17 to 19 range again. This is where we're entering the cliff where there are no more 20-point scoring quarterbacks in the week. If we're taking a look here at the Philadelphia Eagles, if I'm going to bounce over here, points allowed to the quarterbacks here, 7.8 in week 1, which is, that was against Dak Prescott. Then you go ahead, there was 23.1 and then a 14.8. So ultimately, the Eagles are still being the Eagles in terms of defense, in terms of points allowed to the quarterback position. I just read it off. They've got the one game here with less than 10 points allowed. So I think that they can contain Baker Mayfield, but not enough that Baker Mayfield will be non-existent for fantasy. He's just not going to be top 5. So I'm going to put Baker Mayfield down there as my 8th ranked quarterback. I will mention before we get into tier 4, we do have a Discord, by the way. I'll put the Discord link in the description here on YouTube. You can feel free to join. It's free. There are some paid tiers, but you can also just join for free. Jump into the general chat, have a conversation with me, Pete, some of the other guys, talk fantasy football. We're just trying to grow a big community here. So feel free to join that. Also hit the like button. Also hit the subscribe button. We're going to get into tier 4, round this sucker out. Round third base, head for home, to coin a phrase from another sport. Tier 4. We're going to go with our 9th ranked quarterback. It's going to be Mr. Bo Nix of the Denver Broncos. Listen, for NFL standards, Nix has had his troubles, but fantasy, he does have a 20-point performance under his belt. And I'll say this too. This is the interesting thing when I was looking up some stuff here, because they are going up against the Cincinnati Bengals. Surprisingly enough, for all the trashing that we did, understandably so, of the Bengals defense, going to be a complete liability, going to be a fantasy football juggernaut in terms of playing a quarterback against them, they've actually done pretty well. They've only had one game in which they allowed 20 or more points to the quarterback position. Outside of that, the other 2 weeks, 14.2, 16.5. So, granted, though, when you look at that, because again, who are they playing? The games in which they aren't allowing 20 points, it's going to be Joe Flacco, Carson Wentz. So, to me, I know people have a year's worth of tape on Bo Nix. I know Bo Nix is struggling. He did have that 20-point game, but some people ultimately are worrying about Bo Nix. I think this is a spot where people can take a sigh. The Bo Nix truthers can take a sigh of relief. I think we get a nice performance here, solid one again. We're not getting 20 points. He's ranked 9th, but I think we get a competent performance here out of Bo Nix. So I will take Bo Nix here as my 9th ranked quarterback, again, going up against the Cincinnati Bengals. We're not going to tier 3. Why'd I click tier 3? I don't know. Help me out here. Let's go into our next quarterback here. Tier 4, Jesus, Mary, Joseph. 10th ranked quarterback. It's going to be Mr. Jared Goff of the Detroit Lions. Listen, I was worried about Jared Goff. I was worried about the Lions in general. And then, he does produce the 34-point week in week 2. But if we go outside of that, though, it hasn't been great for Goff. 10.9 points in week 1. That was in a beat down against the Packers. And then even just last week, 12.7. I mean, not ideal. So listen, the Lions, in terms of an NFL perspective, they appear to be doing okay, even without all their coordinators and all their coaches and without Frank Ragnow. But in terms of fantasy, it's not really consistently a boom, at least out of the gates here. So this is why I like Jared Goff. I think Jared Goff is going to do well. We got the Detroit Lions. They are going to be going up against the Cleveland Browns. That's kind of the thing, too. The one thing I'll say, which I think bodes well for Jared Goff, at least in terms of finishing in the top 12, is the Browns have been great against running backs so far this year. So I think it's going to be a game in which Jared Goff's going to have to throw the ball. Like, a lot of times we hear that when a quarterback has to throw the ball, it's because it's going to be a shootout. No. That ain't the case here. He's going to have to throw the ball because the Browns are that damn good against the running game. The Browns defense is good in general. So, but either way, I think Jared Goff will do enough here to eke out, back end top 12 finish here. So give me Jared Goff here as my 10th ranked quarterback on the week. Maybe better days are ahead. Maybe not. We'll see. We'll see what it translates to fantasy football. Let's get to our 11th ranked quarterback. To me, Pat Mahomes. And I'll say this. Of all the guys in my top 12, at least at the back end, that I feel like could bite me in the ass, that I feel like I'm not going to be surprised if Pat Mahomes is where I have him ranked, or if Pat Mahomes finishes top 5. Because that's just the kind of guy Pat Mahomes is. He's very much Jekyll and Hyde, helter skelter, whatever you want to put around it. That's what Pat Mahomes is. If I pull up his numbers here, Pat Mahomes, started off the year good in terms of fantasy, 26 points, 22.1. And then just last week goes ahead and does what he does last year in terms of being consistently inconsistent, puts up 13.2 points against the New York Giants. So you don't really, like Forrest Gump would say, life's like a box of chocolates. It translates to Pat Mahomes in fantasy football. You never know what you're going to get. I will say this. He's going up against the Ravens. The Ravens do have some injuries. The Ravens have not been great against quarterbacks. This is why I feel like this could potentially bite me in the ass. Now, The other thing to look at too, because people were criticizing me on Twitter because of my rankings, which by the way, follow me at the FF Realist. The Ravens are fourth in points allowed to the quarterback position so far. But if you look closer at that, though, they had the 1 week where they allowed 41 points, and that was just Josh Allen. After that, it was 14.5, 12.7. So on paper, they're allowing a lot of points to the position. But in actuality, it's not like they're completely inept, like a la the Dallas Cowboys with 3 games of 20 or more points allowed. By the way, the Dolphins are the other team with 20 or more points allowed in all 3 of their games. I'm getting off track. Let's get back to Pat Mahomes. So I think Pat Mahomes does fine. I think he's back 12. Now, will I be shocked if Pat Mahomes is puts up 20 points again and is more towards top 5? I will not be shocked. But in terms of if I got to put my money where my mouth is, if I got to give him a proper rank, to me, a proper rank for Pat Mahomes is going to be the quarterback 11 in week 4 against the Baltimore Ravens. Let's get into the final ranking I have, and it's going to be the biggest surprise in the NFL, the biggest surprise in fantasy football. It's going to be Mr. Daniel Jones of the undefeated Indianapolis Colts. Daniel Jones has gone from QB2 to QB5 to QB11 last week. I do think I do think that we're going to start to see less of a fantasy football boom from Daniel Jones, but I do think we'll see enough of a boom where he's still there at that 12 quarterback spot. Listen, maybe he goes 13, maybe he goes 14 if the points are close enough between some of the other guys. By the way, if you have any questions about top 24 rankings, fire them into the comments. I'll answer. I'll tell you guys whatever you need to know, help you out with any start sit questions. But, you know, I believe the Colts are going to be good enough with Daniel Jones and Jonathan Taylor to win a very weak AFC South. But I don't think the fantasy production is going to be following as strong as it did in weeks 1 or 2. The Rams allowed 29 points, I mentioned earlier, to Jalen Hurts in a comeback effort in week 3. But outside of that, in the other 2 games, 9.7, 9.8 was all they allowed. So, and if I'm pulling this up, they are I got to see this here. You got to give me a hot second here. In terms of, they are one of 2 teams to have multiple weeks in which they have allowed less than 10 points to the position, the other team being the Minnesota Vikings. So while I do think Daniel Jones will have some success, I do think he'll have some trouble against the Rams defense. That's why I've got him at 12. If you finish this 13 or 14, do not color me surprised because I believe it. So those are my top 12 rankings. Those are my quarterback tiers. Again, if you guys have any questions, fire them into the comments. More than happy to answer you guys. But until next time, stay thirsty, be kind to one another. We'll catch you on the flip side. Cheers.